many of you watched the Kentucky Derby last weekend? It was so cool. I mean, the horse was dead last, and all the videos that I saw of the manager, I mean, she's just like, yeah, we're last, yeah. And I could so empathize, like, this is just going to be one of those days. And then all of a sudden, you just see the energy and the look on her face when he starts going, and then he wins. It was amazing. And that same message is here for us in our lives, like, even when we feel dead last, if we just keep going, we end up winning. Maybe not the Kentucky Derby because we're not horses, but we will win in our own journey and in our own path. My name is Andrea Smith. I have the privilege of being the pastor here at West, and I'm so grateful that you have chosen to spend your Sunday here. We call it Humanity Day. There are 2 days of the year that are totally secular holidays, Mother's Day and Father's Day, and we seek to be an inclusive church of all people. And so when we started wrestling with that 15 years ago, like, how do you honor that? Because some of the most amazing, nurturing folks that I've ever seen were not female in gender. They were guys, and they were mothering and nurturing their children. And so we just don't do the typical church happy Mother's Day, the oldest mother, youngest mother, all the mother of the most children. I grew up in a Southern Baptist church, and the whole Sunday was about mothers. And it is a difficult day for some folks, and we honor that as well for those who yearn to have children and have not been able to, others who are estranged from their children. There are so many complicated things that go into relationships. And so it is Happy Humanity Day. Every Sunday's Happy Humanity Day. But we're grateful that on this day, you have chosen to be here. We are in the middle of our message series on mental health, and we're talking about running on empty. We asked last Sunday to start out how low you let your gas tanks go. And I loved getting the text from you all throughout the week of pictures of your gas gauges. Every time you sent me one of those, it just made my day. And I just need to do one little comment I forgot last Sunday. Whoever texted in that they top off their tank every time they drive by Costco, there's something messed up about that. Like, you just don't do that. My car right now is proudly on 30. I think it's like 19 miles to my home, so we're going to gamble on when I stop for gas. And but we're talking about running on empty, and so many times in our lives we do that. And so today is going to be a continuation of what we talked about last Sunday. If you weren't able to be here, we invite you to go to our website and check out the message or our podcast and listen to it there. If you're new to the West community, we are really grateful that you chose to spend today with us, whether you're here in person, worshiping with us online. Huge shout out to our online worshipers. So grateful that you're here. Shout out to those of you listening to the podcast throughout the week. Loved getting your text on how far you would go before you ran out of gas in the middle of the week. It was just fun to have that engagement with you all. We have a gift for you if you are newer to the community at our VIP tent that's out front. We invite you to stop by there. You do not have to worry. We're not going to track you down. I'm not going to show up at your door with a coffee mug. We just want to know that you're here, and then you can let us know if you want to hear from us or not in the future. But we're grateful that you chose to be here today. So I wanted to share with you a couple of things that are just really cool. One is your response to South Elementary. That is a Title I school here in Mooresville Graded School District, and they have a huge population of their students on free and reduced lunch. On Tuesday of this week, we adopted this school last year, and on Tuesday of this week, we're going to do like an end of the year celebration for them. They're going to build their own terrariums, and we have volunteers that are going to be there throughout the day, and all the things set up for them. And was sometimes we bite off these things that seem like great ideas, and then it's like, holy cow, we need 80 terrarium vessels. The office looks like a greenhouse right now, and I'm praying those succulents live until they get them out of there. And we are just excited to be able to provide that opportunity for them. And we were like, okay, this is pretty big. And so we reached out to you, and we're like, hey, do you want to support a teacher at South? and we needed about $800 to do so. We had about $400 that you had donated to make this happen, and then we sent out a church-wide text, and by the end of the night, we had received like $600 more. Yeah, that's right, 600 more, and so now, not only do they get to build a terrarium, but they're going to get some snacks while they do it. So it'll be a fun day for them. And you guys made that possible. You threw money in the baskets out back in the entrance way, and you just always show up. And so I wanted to say thank you. Thank you for showing up to the community, because that's who we are, and that's why we're here. We have a new opportunity for you, and this does not involve spending any of your own money. It involves spending hours. And as you know, or if you don't know, this is going to be something you hear a ton about over the next 2 months. We lead a community effort called the Back to School Bash. And we have generally around 1,200 students that come to Mooresville Middle School in mid-July to get new tennis shoes, new backpacks, new school supplies, and it's all in this fun festival-like atmosphere. It's a huge undertaking. We already have other churches that are saying they're on board with us. We're so excited about that. But part of this is coming up with about 1,800 to 2,000 pair of tennis shoes. And thanks to phenomenal data keeping last year by some volunteers, we actually know what shoes we had left over. That never happens. And what shoes we need to purchase. We need to purchase about 500 pair this year. And so just crazy irony, I got this random email from Woot. I didn't even know that existed. It's an Amazon company, and I understand they're taking over the world, but they also offer cheap tennis shoes. And so what I am asking, that was funny, what I am asking from you is, are you willing to online shop? Because these deals happen like one day, like one time, one day, and you need to respond immediately. We'll reimburse you if you're willing to do the shopping. All you have to do is tell me after worship that you're willing, and I can send out a group text, tell you what to buy. They limit you to 3 pair, but they're quality tennis shoes. They're Vans, they're Adidas, and they're $20 each. I looked at Walmart yesterday for the other brand that we typically buy to fill the need, and those that used to be $12 to $15 when we started doing the bash, they're $25 each now. So you really can't beat this. So I'm asking for your help. Spend our money that we are getting from sponsors and help us by purchasing tennis shoes. So let me know after worship if you're willing to be a part of that. We're really grateful that you're here. We hope that you find today meaningful and relevant and transformational in your life. We're going to talk about Elijah some more and just the stuff and the mess he found himself in, those mental thoughts that kept running through his brain. Talk about our mental thoughts and what do we do with them. Thanks.
Suspicious activity, and call 911 for immediate response.
Now, there's still no way I'm here for the virus.
Turn off the TV, it's starting to freak me out. It's so loud, it's like my ears are bleeding. What am I feeling? Can't look at the ceiling. The light is so bright, it's like I'm overheating. This mind isn't mine. Who am I to judge? Oh, I should be fine, but it's all too late. Get over it.
Suspicious activity, and call 911 for immediate response.
Now, there's still no way I'm here for the virus.
I should be fine, but it's all too much. I should be fine, but I'm not.
So there is a podcast called 10% Happier, and it is by a gentleman who used to be a news personality on ABC, and his name is Dan Harris. And he experienced this pretty significant and horrific event one day when he was live on TV, and it prompted him to change everything about his life, the way he did things. He ran out of gas, literally, emotionally, mentally, physically, on live national news. And it prompted him to do a complete self-evaluation and change everything. I do recommend the podcast to you, and I'll be sharing that podcast and other podcasts or apps with you throughout the week in our daily meditations or devotions, because this week, today, we're talking about ways that we can actually regain a little bit of our own mental health and claiming it. And please understand that I am not talking about things like clinical anxiety or clinical depression. Those things are very real, and that is not what we're talking about today. Today we're just talking about, well, not just, but we're talking about the getting in a low mood, finding ourselves getting depressed. And there's a very big difference between that and a clinical diagnosis of anxiety or depression. And I recommend therapy all the time, every day. It changes things. It helps us be whole and heal. I recommend, faith as well, but guess what? There's a reason that we have doctors that care for us and psychologists and therapists. And so I very much recommend that. I want to show you this clip this morning about Dan Harris talking about what happened to him. And then we're going to tie it into the story of Elijah that we're going to be unpacking for 6 weeks. You're going to be so sick of hearing about Elijah, but we don't spend a lot of time in the Hebrew scriptures or the Old Testament. He has such a powerful story, and one that we can relate to. We're doing our job, we're doing what we're supposed to, and then bam, things just start falling apart, and we don't know what to do, and we're calling out to God. We feel like God's not there, and just want to remind you that we talked about this last week, but faithfulness and being a follower of Christ, a person of God, of following God, and of the divine does not insulate us from bad things happening in our lives. You cannot pray clinical depression away. I don't care how much some other religion or faith-based program might tell you that you can. There is no such thing. There is such a thing at finding ourselves at the bottom and needing help to find our way out. And the mantra of this series is, it is okay to not be okay. What is not okay is to stay that way. It's okay to not be okay. At some point in our lives, we're all going to not be okay. We're going to be fed up. We're going to be tired, exhausted, just depleted, have nothing left in our tank. What is not okay is to stay that way. And I dare say that sometimes in our lives, we're going to encounter people, let it not be us. But sometimes in our lives, we're going to encounter people that they like being stuck, and they like being in that space because it's comfortable. Anytime we heal, we change. And we know that as human beings, we're not always comfortable and okay with change. It feels uncomfortable and scary because we've never done it before. So this morning, we're going to unpack all that. I want you to take a look at this video of Harris.
And next tonight, something different. Imagine millions of people watch your life come unglued. An all-out panic attack on TV. It happened to our Dan Harris, but his journey of discovery brought back some lessons for all of us about our lives, too, and he's telling us about it tonight, Dan.
Hi, Diane. This is a very personal story, as you know, because you were right there when it all started. Sometimes there are things holding us back from being happy, and we're not aware of it until life hits us over the head with a frying pan. And that is what happened to me.
From ABC News, this is Good Morning America.
Welcome to the most embarrassing day of my life.
We're going to go now to Dan Harris, who's at the news desk. Dan.
Good morning, Charlie and Diane. Thank you. This is me 10 years ago. And the reason this is the most embarrassing day of my life is not that it looks like I've been attacked by a blow dryer and a can of hairspray. No, it's that I am about to freak out on national television. Health news now. One of the world's most commonly prescribed medications may be providing a big bonus. Researchers report people who take cholesterol-lowering drugs called statins for at least 5 years may also lower their risk for cancer. But it's too early to prescribe statins slowly for cancer production.
At this point, I realize I'm helpless, so I bail right in the middle.
That does it for news. We're going to go back now to Robin and Charlie.
All right, thanks very much, Dan Harris at the news desk with some of the headlines of the morning. Want to go to Tony Perkins now.
Once the fear subsided, humiliation rushed in. I knew with rock-solid certainty that I had just had a panic attack on national television. So why would I tell you this very embarrassing story? Because that on-air meltdown was the culmination of something that had been building for years, something I never stopped to address. It's something we all battle, whether we have panic attacks or not. Call it the voice in your head.
That's where I feel stress.
It's the inner narrator that can control us.
Highly critical.
Get in the way of living the life we want to lead. For Brian Simmons, it was outbursts of anger.
I would act very reactively, very
For Becky Schmitz, it was emotional eating.
Eating was like my security blanket.
And for a young Dr. Mehmet Oz, it was a racing mind that kept him from focusing on one thing at a time.
For me, saying a voice in the head is too benign an expression of what really happens. That massive cacophony that we hear, deafeningly loud.
Does it surprise you at all how much time we all spend fixating on these self-defeating voices we hear?
I've always been surprised how much time we spend wasting on the voices in our head telling us we're not good enough.
In my case, like many Americans, my inner voice was pushing me to succeed.
Annual New Year's party in New York. This is me in my late 20s.
Thank you, Dan. Dan Harris.
I had my dream job, but I also had doubts about whether I was good enough.
But it's hard to do that. All right, I'm going to try it. 3, 2, 1.
My solution? Become a workaholic.
After 9/11, I volunteered to spend years in war zones where I covered the heroics of our men and women overseas and got a real taste of both the horror and the adrenaline of combat. After years of always barreling forward, when I finally slowed down, it was as if my mind revolted and I got depressed. And so, in my free time, I briefly but stupidly began self-medicating.
And it was those recreational drugs, my doctor would later tell me, that almost certainly produced the on-air panic attack. But losing it in front of 5 million people became a turning point.
It set me off on a strange, unplanned odyssey.
The kind of search so many of us embark upon for answers, understanding, and strength. Ultimately, it would lead me to something I never would have expected, as it has for Dr. Oz and millions of others.
Going inside my mind is no longer going behind enemy lines.
After a journey that involved megachurches, self-help gurus, and brain researchers, what I found is something simple, scientifically tested, and completely free. It's being done by executives, pro athletes, and even the U.S. Marines. It's not a miracle cure, but I like to say it makes you about 10% happier. Much more on that tomorrow night right here.
Right here. And again, Dan, for all of us who've been through this with you, wow, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And learn about the simple answers Dan found tomorrow on World News and his new book, 10% Happier. And again, don't miss tomorrow night.
It is a great book. His podcast is amazing. And so many of the people that he has on the podcast with him, like the one that I was listening to that I'm going to send you tomorrow, they just talk about simple things. Example tomorrow, the one that you're going to hear about is about the power of getting up and moving. And Columbia did a research study, and one day the subjects of the study, they were supposed to work at their desk and just work a normal 8-hour day, sit there, churn away for a few hours, maybe take a break for lunch, then get up and work a few more hours and then be done. And they studied their brain waves and all this kind of stuff, and you'll hear more about it tomorrow. Please do, if you have time, listen to these podcasts because they really are powerful. But then they did another study, and every hour the subjects would, at the end of the 55-minute mark, they would get up and move for 5 minutes. Simple, right? Like just after 55 minutes, stand up and move. And then after doing that for 8 hours, if you studied their brain waves and their mood at the end of the day on both of those days, that simple act of just moving. You didn't have to do burpees. You didn't have to like run up and down the stairs. You just got up and moved. And they said sometimes you just sway from side to side. Just that physical movement changed everything. There are so many tips that we can do to help ourselves. So why don't we take them? I want you to ask yourself this question this morning, like, what do you want? And what do you need? Couple those together. What do you want and what do you need? Part of the problem with us and our mental health is we get caught up, like Dan said, in this race for something. For him, it was perfectionism and success. And we get on this thing like called a hamster wheel, and it just goes on and on and on, and we keep doing these things to try to perpetuate this one thing, and we get stuck in this rut. And if we're not careful, we lose sight of what we want and what we need. Now, if what you want is $1 million, I cannot help you with that. But what if what you want is like happiness and peace? Psychologists, people like Dan Harris, they can give us tips for that. And so does our faith. I think it's so powerful when faith and psychology intersect, because it's such a beautiful marriage of two things that are so vital to our well-being. So first of all, don't be afraid to claim what you want and what you need. Is it simplicity? Is it less of the rat race or this, just drive for success or perfectionism? Simplicity, maybe it's peace, maybe it's better health. Claim what it is that you want and that you need. And then take steps toward that. I want you to listen again to the story of Elijah. He was a prophet. And that is a fancy church word for someone who was, during this time period, the voice of God. Elijah saw his profession, his calling to be the voice of God to this really, really nasty king and his wife. And they were just persecuting the heck out of people. They were killing people that didn't do what they wanted and didn't follow the laws that they wanted them to. So Elijah, the Tishbite, from among the settlers of Gilead, confronted Ahab. And they told him, "As surely as God lives, the God of Israel, before whom I stand in obedient service, the next years are going to see a total drought. Not a drop of dew or rain, unless I say otherwise." And then God told Elijah, "Get out of here and fast. Head east and hide out at the Kerith ravine on the other side of the Jordan River. You can drink fresh water from the brook. I've ordered the ravens to feed you." Elijah obeyed God's orders. He went and camped in the Kerith Canyon on the other side of the Jordan, and sure enough, ravens brought him his meals, both breakfast and supper, and he drank from the brook. After a while, the brook dried up because of the drought. And so God spoke to him then, "Get up and go to Sidon and live there. I've instructed a woman who lives there, a widow, to feed you." So last week, as we read this passage, we focused on the phrase, "after a while." That's how our tank gets empty, right? Like after a while, we're talking about running out of gas. I've noticed, especially after all of your texts last week, that sort of scolded a little bit about perhaps letting the tank get too low. I've also learned that that is damaging to your fuel injection system. For those of you who are my people and you let it get 20 miles or lower, I've been told that's hurtful to the car. But I've been paying attention to that and noticing, like, you know, I can think I've got all this gas. And I think, oh, I'm just going to go to the grocery store. That's not that big of a deal. And then somehow, magically, that one little trip turns into two little trips. And then this morning I get in and the little light comes on and I'm like, I do not have time, nor do I have any desire to stop this morning. We miss out on some of those signs, just like we miss out on like the logical sign of you need to get gas. We miss out on some of those signs in our lives of ways that God is moving in us, ways that God is equipping us to have what we need. In this story, last time we talked about after a while the brook dried up. But what else happens in this story? The ravens, they come and they feed him and they give him what he needs. Later on in the series, we're going to look at another tragic turn in Elijah's life. Like he goes and fights this really powerful, epic battle, think Hunger Games, and he wins. And after that, he's completely done and asks God to take his life. So his thoughts, they're all over the place. And they're cumulative. I don't know if we think about that a lot as people, but our thoughts, they're cumulative. They build upon one another. And if we aren't careful, some of those voices in our head that we heard talked about in the video, like they get louder and louder and louder. And they get louder when our tank gets emptier and emptier and emptier. When we are sleepy and tired and grumpy, I guarantee you those voices are louder. When we're hungry, have you heard the term hangry? Those voices are loud. And if we aren't careful, those voices that we have going on inside of our heads start being the defining narrative of our journey. Those are the voices that we believe, not the voices of others, not looking at where God is moving in our lives and God is providing for us. We start to believe these bad voices in our head, and that drags us down. So far that we end up like Elijah in this just abyss of pain. So I want us to think for just a few minutes about some psychology stuff that really don't have anything to do with faith, but they're important. And the first thing is there's this thing called metacognition. And it's what Harris was talking about. When we think about our thoughts, metacognition means our thoughts about our thoughts. Most of us, if not all, have experienced those negative little voices in our heads telling us that we're not enough, telling us that we're fakes, we're posers, telling us that no matter how hard we try, we're never going to be that which we want to be. We're never going to have that which we want to have. Those voices in our head, they are so dangerous. But guess what? We choose, and this is what metacognition is, we choose how to respond. And the very, very most important part of this is noticing them, noticing our thoughts. That is key. So think about your thoughts. I hear that voice in my head telling me that I am not enough. Let's look at that. That may sound crazy, but I promise it works. Like, sit back, pretend like this is all going on out on a dance floor, and you go up to the balcony and you look down on the things that you are thinking and ruminating on. Like, think about that. Why am I thinking this? Why am I thinking I am not enough? Just because we think it does not make it true. That's one of the biggest aha moments ever. Thoughts are not facts. Just because we think it does not mean it is accurate, and it does not mean it is true. In fact, thoughts are a mix of a bunch of things. Our thoughts are a mix of opinions and judgments, interpretations, stories, memories, and predictions of the future. And this new buzzword that is so prevalent in our society right now, it's called mindfulness. Meditation, mindfulness. And what that means is you pay attention to the present moment. In studying for this, one of the things that I was listening to talked about how many times do you check your phone? Like if you're looking for something, like a reply from someone, or you're applying for a job and you're waiting on that response, or you are hoping that something's going to come your way and you're supposed to find out about it via an email or a text, and you just keep checking your phone over and over and over again. The rise of technology has been the demise of some of our mental health, and there's a ton of research out there to prove that. Watch yourself the next time you're anxious about something. Watch how many times you check your phone. Guess what? If you're doing that, you're not being mindful. You're not living in the moment. You're not letting what is be what is. You're trying to hope or control the outcome. And that isn't healthy. When I listened to this particular study, I was like, I don't do that bad. Like, I don't check my email all the time. No, I don't check my email, but I watch my text sometimes neurotically because I'm anxious about what's going to come or not come. That is not healthy. It certainly is not being mindful. And so then I'm like, okay, why? And this is that metacognition. Why am I thinking about this as much as I am? You could use another word called neurosing. But why am I obsessing about this? Why am I thinking A, B, and C? And I realized, oh my gosh, it's because I'm afraid. I'm afraid of an outcome. I want to show you a picture. It's of a washing machine. And I have on the upper left corner a little word called rumination. This is what we do when we have these little thoughts in our brain and we start attaching ourselves to them, and we keep thinking about them over and over and over again. And the more we think about these thoughts and these negative thoughts and these voices in our head, it just drags us down. It's like a washing machine. It keeps going around and around and around, and they are not getting clean while they're going on in the washing machine of our brain. They're just getting more muddled and more messy, and it's so hard to get out of them. So science and research says that there are some very tangible ways that we do it. I mentioned a few of them last week, like being healthy with our diet. Another one is sleep. Research shows that if you sleep less than 5 hours a night, the same symptoms are present as people who are battling clinical depression. If you consistently sleep less than 5 hours a night, it is so damaging to your person that it is the same as someone who is battling clinical depression. So we need to eat better, we need to sleep, we need to move, we need to get up. I'm not saying you have to go to Planet Fitness 4 hours a day, but we need to get up. And then something that Elijah clearly practiced, even though it's not in this first part of his story, the trust that he shows that it's there, is gratitude. Gratitude's when we look at things with a lens. I want you to look at the image we have on the screen. Not that one. The one, the little magnifying glass, yeah. Gratitude is when you choose, and the word there is choose, to see things. Period. Even in the most horrific of circumstances, there will always be something that we can be grateful for. Even in the most horrific circumstances, there's always something that we can be grateful for. I want you to choose what you see. And the last thing is community. Do not isolate yourself. Isolation never is the answer. Being in relationship with people, calling someone and saying, hey, I've got these thoughts running through my head and I just can't stop thinking about this and I know this is not healthy. Will you just hear me? They can mirror back what you're saying. You can unpack it together. That's also why I think therapy is so, so valuable. Isolation is not ever the answer or the key. In studying, I found this one video that talks about healthy relationships and boundaries. And I just wanted to throw it out there for you because I think sometimes we find ourselves in these icky relationships and we feel guilty for saying what we need. We feel guilty because we're supposed to be, accommodating and love everybody. Like we have a hard time putting boundaries around ourselves. I want you to take a quick look at this video.
You could be drowning and someone in your circle will be upset that you didn't wave back. You could be going through the hardest season of your life and the people around you will still make it about themselves. You're fighting to keep your head above water mentally, financially, spiritually, and the people closest to you don't ask, are you good? They ask, why haven't you called me back? You're barely surviving and someone is in their feelings because you missed their event, because you didn't respond fast enough, because you weren't available the way you used to be. That's when it hits you. Most people don't love you. They love your function. They love what you provide. They love how you make their life easier. And the second you can't perform that role, the second you need to be selfish for a minute just to stay alive, suddenly you're the problem. Suddenly you change. Suddenly you're not the same person. Nah, I'm the same person. I'm just in a war you can't see. And instead of asking me what I need, you're keeping a tally of what I haven't given you lately. Bro, that's not a friend. That's a person who needed you functional and called it love. Job had 3 friends who showed up when everything fell apart. For 7 days, they sat with him and said nothing. No advice, no agenda, no making his suffering about themselves. Just present. That was the most powerful thing they did. And it was the only thing they did right. The moment they started talking is when they got it wrong. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do with your circle is just be quiet and stay close. Not fix it, not explain it, just be there. Pay attention who checks on you when you go quiet. Not who gets offended, who gets concerned. That's your real friend. That's your real circle. Everybody else is just a customer who got to use a free product. If someone only notices you're gone when they need something, they never noticed you were there in the first place.
Find your people. Find the people who are going to love you and not look at you as a commodity. Find your people that are going to pour into you and mirror how you pour into them. Elijah relied on God as his person, such a staunch human of faith. God gives us angels, and we're going to talk about that later in this series, like angels, messengers from God. Find your people. Last Sunday after worship, we had a PAC meeting. That's the governing body of West. We meet once a month. And as we were sitting there, Adam Lumley, who was on the team, said, "You remember that time you called me, right?" I'm like, "What?" I mean, I've called Adam a million times over the past however many 20 years I've known him. And he's like, "Come on, you got to remember." He's like, "That time you were in Charlotte." And he didn't have to finish the story. I remembered it was 15 years ago, right after we launched West, and I was completely overwhelmed. I had no idea it would be as successful as it was. I was not doing a good job balancing work and being a mom and being a wife and all this stuff. Like, I was on the downward spiral. And we'd had someone go in the hospital as an emergency, and so I went to Charlotte to be with them, and of course had not looked at the gas gauge. This is a pattern. And I'm on my way back. It's like 7:30 at night. It's dark, and it is on like beyond empty. And my fear in life is running out of gas and all the cars going around me and just being humiliated. So I'm like, I've got to get off the interstate. I've got to find some gas. And so I stopped at probably, I don't know much about Charlotte, but there were a lot of bars like over the doors and the windows at this particular gas station. And inside there was glass, like bulletproof glass, and more bars up. And I just felt like this was perhaps not where I needed to be, like hanging out alone in the dark. But I was going to go pump my gas, and I looked for my wallet, and there was not one. There was no purse. And I have a bad habit of leaving my keys in the car, so I never knew I didn't have the rest. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. Apple Pay 15 years ago was not a thing. I scrounged all throughout my car. All I could find were some $10 gift cards. And there was a gentleman loitering around the place, and I'm like, I wonder if I could get him. If I give him the gift card, would he give me $10? Like, could I barter for some gas? And then I saw some other gentlemen walk up, and just the exchange that they were having did not make me feel like I should get out of my car. So I'm like, Adam, without asking really any questions, my family's all at different places. No one can come get me. Could you go to the West office and get my purse and bring it to me in Charlotte? I have no money for gas. And what did Adam do at 7:30 at night? He went to the West office, he got my purse, and he came to Charlotte. And I filled up my car and then took him to a nice dinner at Carrabba's. I did remind him of that. I'm like, hey, I fed you. I may have done nothing else, but I fed you. I guarantee you, and I've got lots of Adams, I guarantee you do too. Find your people. Let them be the ravens that come to you, that feed you, that mirror you, that help you unpack those unhealthy thoughts. It's okay to not be okay. It is not okay to stay that way. Let us pray. Gracious God, thank you for this example of Elijah and how you just kept caring for him over and over again. You put people in his midst to care for him. And God, you put people in our midst to care for us. Help us confront those voices in our brain. Help us address them for being the unhealthy voices that they are. Help us to cling to what is true and good and loving about ourselves. And help us care for one another in the ways that you care for us. We give you so much thanks and praise for the amazing God that you are. In Christ's name, amen. I invite you to stand and sing. So the next Sunday the next time you see Brianna Marino, she will be a Mrs., so congratulate her. Friday's the big day, so yeah, looking forward to that. So grateful for you. Go find your people. They will bring you what you need. They will bring you money. They will bring you gas. They will get you out of trouble over and over again. God leads us to people. Go find your people and have an amazing, happy Humanity Day. Go in peace.